Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. And patch 10.2 has given rogues an entirely new revamp, with the specs like Outlaw, Assassination and Subtlety all feeling refreshed and stronger than ever. Earlier this week we've been able to cover all of the new improvements coming to the spec of Outlaw Rogue, which is looking like a Mythic Plus AoE powerhouse. But the spec that slays the bosses the best has generally been the spec of Assassination. In this video, I wanted to go over the guide to Assassination Rogues for the patch 10.2 to help new and returning players get started and dive into the endgame content for Season 3. This video will go over everything you need to know, from different talent builds to the playstyle and rotation to how to optimize your cooldowns and better pull your energy. But right before we get into this Assassination Rogue 10.2 PvE guide, most of you guys watching these types of videos are still not subscribed. However, the more of you remind, the more of you do, so let's keep it going. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're watching these videos anyway, especially if you want to get more regular content regarding Dragonflight 10.2 or any of the future updates going forward. I usually like to begin my guide videos by going over the talented builds first. In patch 10.2, rogues have gone through a massive set of new revamps, which have added a ton more talented options for all three specs, including Assassination. It is highly recommended, especially if you're brand new to Rogue, to carefully look over your talent trees to familiarize yourself with some of the available passive and active talented options. However, the current best build for raids for Assassination is going to play around the ability of Shadow Dance, which will allow you to snapshot your damage over time abilities. This raiding build also utilizes Kingsbane and Dragon Tempered Blades together to create a powerful single target combo, which will focus on building up the output of Kingsbane and then combine the Vanish crit window for an explosive Kingsbane opener. However, this playstyle is not easy to play by any means, so if you're brand new to Rogue, we have a single target easy build that works fine for raiding. This build does not play around the Shadow Dance ability. Overall, it ends up being much easier to pick up, but it will deal overall less damage. If you're brand new to Rogue for the patch 10.2, I highly recommend to start out with this build first, until you feel more familiar with the playstyle and the basic rotation. Next, we have a priority target Mythic Plus build, which is fantastic against tyrannical bosses, as well as assassinating priority targets. This build will emphasize control within dungeons, good personal defense, but also fantastic priority output, which is the more ethical dungeon version of Assassination that will still do fantastic damage thanks to the AoE talent of Spatter. However, if damage is what you need within Mythic Plus dungeons, then we have a full AoE Mythic Plus build, which has a big focus on cleaving down and eviscerating multiple targets at once. This build is perfect if you want to focus on group-wide AoE damage, like during fortified Mythic Plus weeks. This build also does decent single target damage against bosses, but it definitely has a preference for multiple targets. Next, let's talk about how to gear your rogue for the patch 10.2. If you are serious about gearing a rogue and are planning to be more competitive within the Season 3 of Dragonflight, I will recommend for you to start using sims in order to better optimize your rogue, as sim websites such as RaidBots can provide you a lot more detailed and accurate information regarding which items are going to be your best upgrade. Sim websites allow you to better compare items against each other, to find out which items are going to be a bigger upgrade or which secondary stats will benefit you the most. You can even compare talent builds against one another and set up for various types of PvE situations. So if you're seriously taking a rogue for the patch 10.2, you should start using sim websites. However, this video will give you a more simplified version of how to optimally gear your rogue for the Season 3. Starting with your best secondary stats. In most cases, if an item delivers more agility for your character, it's usually an upgrade. However, certain secondary stats are better. Stats like Mastery and Critical Strike are very close to each other in performance and output the most amount of damage for your rogue, where Mastery buffs the damage of your poisons and bleeds, while Critical Strike gives you a chance to generate additional combo points. Both of these stats are going to be a top priority, followed by Haste and then Versatility. When it comes to collecting some of your best in-slot items, you're looking for the dagger from the Dawn of the Infinite Dungeon called Nick of Time, as your best option for both main hand and offhand in all forms of endgame content. One of your better trinkets is going to come from the newest Mythic Plus dungeon of Everbloom, where you want to look out for the Witherbark's branch. Your other best trinket will come from the newest raid of Emergicel, where you want to pick up Pip's Friendship Badge for additional passive stats. Besides weapons and trinkets, you also want to get your hands on your tier sub bonus as soon as possible. For Assassination Rogues, the 2-piece set bonus increases your nature damage as well as auto attack speed as you spend more energy, while the 4 set causes envenoms inside of an existing envenom window to deal explosive nature damage up to 5 targets, which offers a very slight rotational adjustment. Where besides the 4 set, the Assassination tier set is mostly passive and doesn't necessarily affect our playstyle too much. You have a couple of ways of obtaining your tier set bonuses. Starting from the raid tier, where slaying bosses within the new Emergency raid has a chance of dropping tier set tokens. Another way of obtaining tier sets is through the Great Vault system. Completing any of the endgame activities has a chance to drop tier set items. Lastly, you will be able to convert almost any Season 3 gear into tier set gear with the Revival Catalyst, which will be available day 1 of Season 3. But only certain items such as shoulders, gloves, pants, chest, and helms can have any of the tier set, 2 set, and 4 set bonuses. Next, let's go over the rotation and the playstyle of Assassination Rogues. Assassination Rogues' primary focus is on maintaining damage over time effects through bleeds and poisons, which is core to how you deal sustain and cleave damage output. Like every other rogue spec, you play with 2 resources, such as energy and common points, and your rotation amounts to a priority system of common point builders and common point spenders. Out of all 3 specs, Assassination Rogue is one of the easiest specs of rogues to get into, as long as you can adjust to a playstyle that changes from a slow and passive outside of major cooldowns to a one that's fast and active inside of major abilities. First, let's go over your basic builders and spender abilities. In single target, Mutilate will be your main common point builder. Mutilate is an ability that strikes with both your main hand and offhand daggers. Each strike of your daggers will generate a combo point, but if any of your dagger strikes crit, they will generate an additional combo point, where you can generate between 2, 3, and 4 combo points in a single global. Sometimes Mutilates will turn into ambushes thanks to the talent of Blindside, which will replace the ability automatically. When this happens, we simply use Ambush over Mutilate whenever it's available. In single target, we use Mutilate or Ambush until we generate about 4 combo points. Once we generate 4 combo points, we'll prioritize our maintenance, buffs, and abilities. But if those don't need refreshing, Envenom will be your primary ability spender in single target or AoE situations. When it comes to AoE encounters, we'll start using the ability of Fan of Knives whenever we are fighting 3 or more targets. Similar to Mutilate, Fan of Knives fires daggers at every target. Fan of Knives normally generates a single combo point, but it will also generate additional combo points for every other enemy that it crits. Once we generate 4 combo points in AoE situations, whenever we're fighting more than one target, we'll start applying the bleed of Crimson Tempest to every target around us. Crimson Tempest only needs to be maintained and refreshed. It isn't a finisher that you need to spam in AoE situations. However, even in AoE encounters, we will still be using the ability of Mutilate once in a while to keep up the debuff of Spatter, which allows us to create a priority target situation where using poison abilities on a Spatter target causes the poison damage to cleave to nearby enemies. Next, let's go over some of our maintenance buffs, starting with Slice and Dice. Slice and Dice is a passive that increases our auto attack speed, which allows us to apply our weapon poisons to the target more quickly, which results in a big single target damage buff. Slice and Dice is a common point spender, but it only requires 1 common point to be maintained, as it can then be infinitely refreshed whenever you use the ability of Envenom. Rupture is another maintenance buff, which is a bleed that consumes common points, gaining a longer duration per common point spent. Corrode is another bleed that needs to be maintained at all times. Corrode generates common points, causing damage over time. When used from stealth, Corrode also silences our targets, while generating additional common points based on some of our talented choices. Both Rupture and Corrode bleeds generate us energy every time these dots tick, making them your top priority within combat situations. Bleeds can also cleave onto nearby targets when using Mythic Plus dungeon builds, and are your priority focus at the start of any encounter when opening from stealth. Next, let's go over how to properly use Assassination Rogue's cooldowns, starting with the ability of Shiv, which causes our targets to take additional poison damage as well as bleed damage if we're talented into talents such as Arterial Precision. We try to use Shiv as much as possible throughout an encounter, though it is best to save at least 1 charge of Shiv when we can combine it with some of our other offensive cooldowns. The cooldown of Vanish grants us access to stealth abilities and stealth-oriented talents. The best place to use Vanish is when we are about to leave our Deathmark windows to activate a crit damage buff in order to amplify Kingsbane's output. If you talent into Echo and Reprimand, you should try to use this ability on cooldown as much as possible. Using Echo and Reprimand will empower our calm point finishers by turning some of those calm points blue. Using finishers on those blue calm points makes them act as if 7 calm points were spent into the finisher, amplifying their overall output. The talent of Kingsbane is a potent toxin, which gains more power the more often you apply your weapon poisons to the Kingsbane target. Kingsbane is best used on cooldown when paired together with the ability of Shadow Dance to amplify its damage. While Kingsbane is active, you should prioritize using the ability of Envenom as much as possible, and use the ability of Shiv during the last 8 seconds of the Kingsbane's window. Like Kingsbane, Shadow Dance should also be used on cooldown. You should combine Shadow Dance together with Kingsbane, and during dance you should also apply Garrote and Rupture at some point so that all of your dots benefit from the Night Stalker snapshot window. Then we have Assassination's primary cooldown of Deathmark, which causes your bleeds and poisons to duplicate on your marked target, which further amplifies all bleed and poison talent interactions. Deathmark should ideally be used on cooldown as much as possible throughout an encounter to maximize your output. And whenever Deathmark is active in single target or AoE situations, you should try to prioritize that target, yes, even in Mythic Plus dungeons because of talents that cleave such as Spatter. The cooldown of Thistle Tea causes you to regain a portion of your energy and gain additional mastery for a short amount of time. When it comes to Thistle Tea, you should avoid capping out on 3 stacks of Thistle Tea. You should also always save at least 1 charge of Thistle Tea for every single one of your Kingsbane windows. Next, let's go over a mechanic that's mostly unique to Assassination rogues, which is pulling your energy. Pulling means simply saving your energy, not spending it until certain conditions are met. Learning how to pull your energy effectively is one of the highlights of Assassination for the 10.2. Effective pulling can lead to better damage output thanks to talents such as Sanguine Blades. Learning how to appropriately pull your energy is truly difficult to master, but it does create a clear difference when it comes to damage output between rogues that truly know their spec and those that don't. Here are some of the rules that you can use to be more effective at pulling your energy. Rule number 1, don't pull your energy when your offensive cooldowns are active, whether you were talking about things like Shadow Dance and Kingsbane windows or Deathmark openers, because this is where your energy can be used most effectively. So try to pull your energy during combat downtime. Rule number 2, don't hold back energy from generating calm points. It's perfectly normal to press Mutilate a couple of times or Phantom Knives to generate up to 4 calm points, but afterwards, as long as your maintenance buffs don't need to be refreshed, it's perfectly normal to then just simply sit on your energy. Rule number 3, outside of major cooldowns, we'll use what are known as Envenom chains to utilize our tier sub bonus as well as our Shiv ability. To chain Envenoms, we'll wait until we have enough energy and then spend our calm points into an Envenom. Then we'll build calm points back up again and then hold them until our Envenom buff is almost fallen off, where we'll use the ability of Envenom again. Rule number 4, outside of major cooldowns, if we're trying to chain our Envenoms but we don't really have the energy or the calm points to guarantee a chain, simply reapply all of your maintenance buffs, build calm points, and then wait until you're ready to chain Envenoms again. Finally, rule number 5, you should try chaining Envenoms once you have about 80% of your energy back. This way you have just enough resources in order to be able to successfully complete your chains while also maintaining your energy pulling capabilities. Next, let's go over some of the openers you can use for your Assassination rogues. And for this video, we'll have 2 openers. One for pure single target situations and one for Mythic Plus dungeons where you're fighting multiple targets. First, let's go over the single target opener. Before a combat encounter starts, make sure you're buffed up and have all of your weapon poisons active. In single target, it should be Deadly Poison, Amplification Poison, Crippling Poison, and Atrophic Poison. Then you want to enter Stealth. From Stealth, we'll open on our target with a Garrote into a Slice and Dice, then Mutilate into a Rupture. Afterwards, we'll use Mutilates or Ambush procs to get ourselves in Envenom once we have 4 or more combo points. Then we press Deathmark together with any unused damage trinkets or combat potions. Then we shove our target into a Shadow Dance Kingsbane. When we use Shadow Dance, we want to make sure to refresh Rupture and Garrote. From there, we're building combo points and using Envenoms as much as possible. As the first shiv is about to run out, we'll reshiv our target again, and then we'll use Vanish during the very last 3 seconds of Kingsbane, where we want to reroute our target a third time. And from that point on, we follow our ability priority rotation when it comes to our common point builders, spenders, and maintenance buffs. We will try to pull our energy while keeping all of our cooldowns on CD as best as possible, pulling our energy until the next Shadow Dance and Kingsbane window, and then afterwards pulling our energy again until the next Shadow Dance, Kingsbane, and Deathmark window. Then we have an opener from Mythic Plus Dungeons. Like before, make sure all of your weapon poisons are active and that you start the encounter from stealth. In the opener, we want to garrote on as many targets as possible, knowing the garrote will cleave nearby targets. Then we slice and dice when we have full common points. Afterwards, we use Phantom Knives and Rupture on as many targets until all of them have the bleed active. Then we'll use Mutilate on our priority target, Phantom Knives to build common points, and then Envenom. We Deathmark our priority target, then we shift that target, Shadow Dance, Kingsbane, and then garrote to spread bleeds on everyone, where we'll use Envenom on that priority target. Then we continue to garrote to generate more bleeds, and then we'll use Crimson Tempest to bleed up all our enemies. We use Mutilate to refresh our spatter, and then shift during the last few seconds of our Kingsbane. Remember to Vanish during the last 3 seconds of Kingsbane, and then garrote to continue bleeding your targets. From there on, you continue with your normal rotation, using Mutilate or Phantom Knives depending on how many targets you have, maintaining Rupture and garrote on as many targets as possible, while also keeping up a Crimson Tempest on all targets active. Be sure to refresh Mutilate on our priority targets, and when all of the maintenance buffs are active, we'll be using Envenoms to cleave everybody else. Next, let's go over some of the best embellishments that you can craft for your rogue. For Assassination rogues in Season 3, we'll be using the Toxic Thorn boots, and we'll pair them together with a Toxic patch on any one of our other items in order to enhance the potency of our Toxic embellished item. Finally, let's go over enchants, gems, and consumables, starting with how to enchant your items. For your weapons, Assassination rogues are going to want to run Wafting Devotion enchant to give us additional haste. Our chest will be enchanted with Waking stats, and legs will have the Fierce Armor Kit. Rings can either have the Devotion of Mastery or Critical Strike, whichever stat you have less of. Cloaks and Bracers can have the Leech enchant. Boots will have the Watcher's Loam additional stamina, while Belt will have the Shadowed Belt class for even more stamina, and the helmet will be enchanted with an Incandescent Essence. When it comes to gemming your gear and items, you'll want to run at least one Skillful Diamond in one of your sockets. You can only obtain a Skillful Diamond by either learning the profession for jewel crafting or submitting a work order to a jewel crafter on your realm. Besides this, the rest of your sockets should be filled with either Sensei's Nelthorite or Sensei's Alexstrasite for crit or mastery, trying to prioritize whichever stat you have less of on your gear. When it comes to consumables, the Phial of Tepid Versatility will be your best option for raid progression. The Phial of Corrupting Rage technically is a much better potion, but it does decrease your overall survivability. In situations where survivability is not an issue, Corrupting Rage will be a far stronger option. Besides this, for food, you'll either want the Deviled Eggs or have a Raid Feast available. For your weapons, you want to enhance them with either a Buzzing Rune or a Hissing Rune. One gives you crit, one gives you mastery, but you should choose the stat of which one you have the less of on your gear and items. For your combat potion, you want the Potion of Ultimate Power, while defensively you want the Dreamwalker's Healing Potion. Lastly, you should also get yourself an Augment Rune. While those things are fairly expensive to get on the auction house, being able to work up the reputation with the newest faction does allow you to buy the Infinite Augment Rune, which will come in handy when it comes to all forms of endgame content. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.